All right, it is now 6:53, and with that, we will resume to an open meeting. Jackie, can we please start with a roll call?
Amanda Harness.
Here.
Andre Powell.
Here.
Steve Byers.
Here.
Ariel Owens.
Present.
Christopher Boyes.
Here.
Daisy Ramirez.
Present.
Vante Bynum.
Here.
All right. With that, we will move on to public participation and recognition. Public comments. Members of the public who wish to speak to the board shall complete a request card prior to the start of the meeting. This section of the meeting will be reserved to comments from the public. All comments should be limited to 3 minutes. Criticism of individuals is not in order. We do have about 11 people that are here that have submitted cards. So I know that last time we had asked for it to be 2 minutes because of the high number that we had. But today, since we only have 11 and we do have 30 minutes normally allocated for this, we are going to just allow the 3 minutes for everyone to have their full time. We just ask again that everybody be respectful because we do want to hear everybody's concerns as they are presented to us today. So with that said, Mr. Cohen-Barnes.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for having me out. Can you hear me okay?
Mhm.
So, what's that? So I just want to say, first off, thank you. We've had a lot of spirited debate during this process. I think there's a lot of passionate people on the board. There's a lot of passionate people in the community. And I just wanted to commend you all for ultimately doing what you thought was in the best interest of the district as well as in the best interest of the taxpayer. The proposal that is before you tonight, I'm in full support of. I want to thank our superintendent and president of the school board for the time you've given me to help walk through where we're at, as well as Armir. I think Armir's in the audience somewhere, to gain greater understanding, and I thought it was great, that collaboration that we have. I also wanted to thank the community. It's really cool. This is local government, right? This is local action for all of us to get as informed as we possibly can and come out and have the courage to be able to speak how we feel, as well as be able to reach out to school board members and speak how we feel. That's how a community gets stronger. That's an iron sharpens iron kind of thing. So I'm incredibly grateful from that perspective. I did want to comment as well as the collaboration. In May, all of us taxing bodies came together and we worked on this particular topic. We came together in August and we worked on this particular topic as well. But during that meeting, we also talked about collaboration that goes well beyond property taxes. That's a high topic right now because we're at such a high property tax rate, and I know collaboratively we want to work that down. But ultimately, the spirit of that meeting is going to be collaboration. Can you imagine all of us taxing bodies together, meeting twice a year, 3 times a year, whatever it takes, collaboratively talking together about how we can strengthen our organizations, but also strengthen the community? And I've talked about before this philosophy of governing, making sure that the taxpayer is part of that conversation. And I'm particularly excited about next May when we have our next taxing summit, we'll call it, but I might change the name to our next collaboration meeting, where this will be one of the topics that we'll have in May. But also, what could we start doing more together, or at least being aware of what initiatives we each have and how maybe we can help each other out in the process. And ultimately, since we're all taxing bodies and we all represent the public, how can collaboratively we strengthen our community? So again, I just wanted to say thank you to you all. I wanted to say thank you to the public, and of course, Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. Thank you all.
Thank you. Next up, Tom Tarasinski.
Thank you very much. A couple comments. First of all, I want to thank the board for stepping up and forcing some adequate transparency in this discussion. It took a couple extra meetings to accomplish that, and for the ones of you who took the extra time to try to understand what this levy process is about, I want to thank you very much. Leadership. I want to thank the mayor. Not just because of the taxing issue, but the leadership that he brings and the approach regarding collaboration and open communication. On the other hand, I look back at the last meeting and I had to reflect on what has happened here over the last 3 meetings. And one of the board members said, "This is a real shit show." at our last meeting, and at the end of 45 minutes of discussion, I came to think, yeah, it kind of was. The prior meeting to that was a special meeting where 5 board members came to a consensus about what should happen. The very next meeting we came to did not offer an alternative that matched up with those 5 consensus requests. The idea to come back with an alternative without an option that even met that objective is a concern of mine. A lack of transparency. Governance process needs to be an open, transparent process with good ability to communicate. And when we're talking about 80, 70, or $80 million, and we have no worksheet or no discussion about how we get from A to B in a special meeting that was called for that purpose, is troubling to me at this time. I know that the board is ultimately responsible for the communication and the accountability necessary to make sure that transparency is forthcoming and that everyone understands in detail what we're trying to accomplish before they vote on something this important. The current announcement that we have in front of us, what you're going to vote on finally, brings back to us what the board had requested, which should be a tax amount that is going to hold the taxpayer harmless and not require a further abatement to achieve that. This should be a permanent tax reduction to the citizens, and thank everyone who has finally helped us get to that point. Again, thank you. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to listen.
Next person, Barb Larson.
Hi, I'll be quick. I'm Second Ward Alder person, and at last meeting, some of the board members gave me a role model to follow, that if I'm ever faced with any kind of a vote that I am not 100% clear on and sure of what my vote should be before council, that I will have the courage to keep standing and say, but I don't understand. This doesn't seem like what we had talked about. And I so appreciate that courage it took for this board to stand there and say, it's not what we thought. And so I so appreciate it in my job, and let me tell you, it has impacted me and what my role will be on the city council. Thank you.
Next up, Steve Irving.
Well, this is assuming you're going to approve the proposal that's before you tonight. I'd like to thank the staff, the superintendent, the administrative guy, the head of the finance department, and the entire board. It's nice to know that the whole group has listened to us. Us, we're the citizens, we're the taxpayers, we're the homeowners, and we have a real concern with our current rate of taxes, let alone an increase in taxes. So it's greatly appreciated. Thank you very much.
Next up, William Heinisch.
Good evening. I just want to look into the future here a little bit, and let's look and set the stage for next year. The proposed tax levy tonight generates 13% more revenue for the district. And like I said at the very first meeting earlier on, this process was actually started 8 to 10 years ago by a group called Focus and a number of citizens trying to bring more growth to the community. However, next year, inflation's going to be dropping. With that 13%, I think most reasonable people understand that the school district had 10% increase in costs. We wanted to reduce the student-teacher population, and so that seemed reasonable. But looking into the future and looking into next year, inflation has dropped, costs have flatlined, and again, we are going to have more sugar, I called it, and more new AV next year. We're going to be in the same boat next year. I think citizens and taxpayers next year expect more than a hold harmless rate. We want to see our taxes lowered, dollars paid per $300,000 home. We are one of the top 10% highest tax communities and counties in Illinois and in the country. Some suggestions. We need to start the process earlier with more transparency. A white paper should be developed that any layman, citizen, school board member can read, understand, follow the numbers, how they're calculated, and so we're not at the 19th hour trying to hammer it out. Possibly a special tax levy finance committee consisting of those who voice their concerns about the tax rate. We should look too for a 3 to 5 year projections of budgets, tax levies, and tax rates. You know, and does the district have a revenue problem, or does it have a resource allocation problem that needs to be looked at? I ask this administration, are they up to the task? And are they willing to continue to embrace and understand the pulse of the citizens and the community, the taxpayers and the school board? Next year, there should be a decrease in dollars paid per $300,000 home. And actually, this starts way earlier, even earlier in the year than your budgeting process. So the budgeting process eventually translates into a levy. So this really starts earlier in the year. I, for one, am willing to step up to the plate and help, and I want to continue to have the success we do in DeKalb and in this community. Thank you.
All right, next up, Jim Mason.
Well, you must be a professional. You hit that within 7 seconds. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Jim Mason. Let's look to the future. I'm not here to talk about what you've done. I want to commend you on what you've done so far. And that's the future, is what I'm talking about now. We have millions and millions of dollars worth of taxes being paid by the new construction on Route 88. And what I want to do is I want to talk to you folks about managing all that money to pay off the present old school debt 100% as soon as those funds are available, and pay to fix the streets. We have enough money in the old part of town to do what we're doing tonight. But now you have all this new money coming in, so why don't we take and pay down the debt? We're probably the only community in the United States that can do this. It's an unbelievable situation that our founding fathers made this available to us to be able to be in this position. The other thing is I would like to participate in auditing how the school board is run by a private group, which could be Will Heinisch and our group, which is DARA. And what we'd like to do is have a 30-day report. How you folks doing and where's the money going? And have somebody that the citizens can talk to personally so they could iron things out if they don't understand what's going on. Doing things together. You have so much money coming into your coffers over the next 30 years, you can do anything you want. So I would like you to do it with the community, keep us informed, and we can have everything we want. We just keep it within our boundaries. Thank you.
Next up, Jeff Hallgreen.
I spoke in the last meeting, so I'll keep it brief tonight. Wanted to thank the board. I want to let you guys know, I didn't make it clear last time. I appreciate what you guys are doing. I was there. It's hard doing this. This is very, very challenging. There's a lot of considerations, and I appreciate that you've done that, and I very, very much appreciate your time and effort that you put into this stuff. I would like to also speak about the notion of keeping this a continual process. It's been mentioned by others that this is a path that, with the amount of money that's coming in, that we can afford to keep it, the taxpayers, part of this down to the lowest roar possible. We built, I think it's been mentioned, we built or had 6 permits in DeKalb. It's a town, 40,000 people. That's pitiful. That is really, really pitiful. 6 permits this year, 6 permits last year. I mean, we're not growing. And part of that is very much because of high taxes. We need to attract new people, build new homes, bring new people in that are going to purchase a home and stay here. It's the staying here that's important. People coming in and bringing their children, that's negative. That is to say, they draw out more than they put in. Kids cost, when I was there, kids cost $15,000, $15,500. So that you have 2 kids, $30,000 is being spent. You're putting in maybe 4, maybe 6 at the very most. So you're drawing out of the system. We need people like these people out here that are paying in with no children in the system, and we need new people. So we've got to keep the taxes down. It has to be pretty much the driving force for being on the board. That was the case for me when I was on the board. Our board, we worked very hard to keep it at a 0, no growth. I mean, in other words, the tax not growing during that period of time. So I very, very, very much appreciate what you do, but I definitely feel that we have to grow. And in order to do that, we have to keep those taxes to as lowest amount as we can do. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Mark Shervat.
All right, staff needs to explain why they have neglected to inform the board that this district will receive interest revenue on the $70 million in reserves to the tune of $3.5 million a year. This has not been part of the revenue calculations presented to the public and board. I wish one of the board members would ask about that. In subordination, this board asked staff to come back to the board with a $71 million property tax levy filing with the county. The board did this at its meeting in November, and its meeting last week, and twice, I should say, they defied the request. On December 12th, they came back with a levy figure of $81 million. Tonight, the figure is $76 million, not the $71 million that this board asked for. I'm not sure what it is you don't get. The board asked for a figure of $71 million, and unfortunately, the two that are making these decisions continue to defy what the board asked. So it might be prudent for this board to consider hiring legal representation for the board. The district already has it. The board needs some, I think, as well, to see that its directives to staff are carried out. Ms. Sanchez also has been using taxpayer resources through mass emails to parents to lobby for tax increases. That is totally inappropriate. The board needs to focus on the certificate of levy. This is the document you need to look at. It's in Exhibit 1. In column 2, at the top, under total levy, that figure should read $71 million, not $76 million. This is the official filing that goes on record with the county. This is the most important part and the start of next year's tax discussion. That is the number we start at next year. PTEL states that you can levy up to 5% more without a public hearing and without publishing a truth in taxation notice to the taxpayers. This means next year's starting levy can and probably will be over $80 million at a minimum. Next year, we will not have the benefit of the $12.6 million property tax relief funding from the state. What does this mean? Thousands of extra dollars for every taxpayer, homeowner in this community. Those who attended this and the last couple of meetings have invested years of their time into savings into their homes. And we have all been promised as a result of the new development of the south end of town, we would see a downward pressure on the dollars that we pay, tax dollars. We are not getting that. We are witnessing a greedy money grab by this administration. This is the biggest I've ever witnessed in all my years of living here. Unfortunately, I'm afraid that we're going to start at a higher level next year, and the taxpayers are going to be paying dearly. The tax filing needs to read $71 million, and I hope Mr. Boyes will present his amendment again. Thank you.
Next person, Dwayne Brown.
At the last meeting, one speaker told a story about a family who had to decide if they wanted to put food on the table or buy their children Christmas presents. They couldn't afford to do both. Wouldn't it be nice if they could? Many families are in the same situation. Lowering the tax rate could help many families and businesses. In the past, the higher tax rate was needed to capture the required dollars the district needed. Today, that is not the case. The rate could be lowered substantially and still provide the necessary operating capital the district needs. It's time to take the burden off the homeowner. When the high school was built in 2008, the school board told the taxpayers that growth would help pay for it. That certainly wasn't the case. We had a recession, no growth, unemployment, government bailouts, banking problems, and the taxpayers left to tackle the cost themselves. We have today industrial growth providing additional tax dollars. All taxing bodies should lower their levy rates. We now have the opportunity for all taxing bodies to capture the revenue they needed with lower levies and let additional growth flourish in the city. The tax levy rate should be lowered to 5.1%. When I was in grade school, back in the Stone Age, we were taught that the Boston Tea Party was an American political mercantile protest on December 16, 1773, by the Sons of Liberty in Boston. This was a protest against the British Parliament's tax on tea. They were by throwing 342 chests of tea into Boston Harbor. If we don't get a fair and equitable tax levy, there will be another Boston Tea Party, and it will be here. Thank you.
Next person, Maria Peña Graham.
Good evening. I am Maria Peña Graham, realtor that works and lives in DeKalb. I've lived here in the community. Can you hear me? Sorry, I'm too short. Sorry about that. Now I feel like I'm yelling at everybody. I've worked and lived in the community for many years. I also have a junior at the high school who's very involved in sports. When I try to sell DeKalb and homes in DeKalb, unfortunately, what I keep hearing over and over again is that our taxes are too high. I know this is a complicated, confusing, and quite extensive process that we're going through. In the end, the school will always get a piece of the pie from the taxpayers, the grants, the state money, and interest from the monies held by the school. My little bit of knowledge and understanding about how taxes work is this. My property tax bill reflects 10 taxing bodies in DeKalb that get a portion of my money. D 428 gets 60.3% of that portion of taxes I pay in every year. That is over half of my entire tax bill. To me, that's really huge. The other taxing bodies, what they receive is very disproportionate to what the school is getting. The administration, to me, is not presenting a true and accurate picture of what is happening tonight to the majority of the citizens in our community. Most may not understand how taxes are collected and divided. The kids, from what I understood at the last meeting, and some of the other people think that programming and other services are going away if you don't get the levy that the administration is asking for. That's simply not true. Every year they get 60.3% taxes of all the taxes, collected in our county, or in DeKalb. Our taxes continue to increase, and that's not good. If that increases, every time the tax increases, so does the portion that the school gets. So I keep saying, when is enough is enough. It's already hard to sell DeKalb when our taxes increase. It's hard for young families to buy homes in this community. Something different has to be done, and the school district needs to learn how to work with the windfall that has been given to it right now with all this industry coming in. The student population is not growing at this point. It's very stagnant. The majority of us small business owners and private industry workers have had to live within our means through COVID and through the financial inflation that is happening now. District 428 has to learn how to do the same thing. They can't expect to be getting more money from a diminishing tax base, and they can't continually ask for increasing levies. Thank you.
Next person, Roger Hopkins.
Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. I've lived here for about 40 years now and involved in leading economic development for about 25 of those years. I appreciate the fact that the school board became an active participant with other governing bodies in developing a tax abatement program that then evolved into the enterprise zone and some other economic development tools. The reason we did that is we needed to create incentives for larger companies to move here. And the school board has been an active participant in that process, and I think that's really commendable. But I think one of the things you've got to recognize is for that incentive to work and to keep companies here is you need to have a predictable and responsible fiscal approach to how you manage collecting those taxes and also operating career and technical education programs and even basic education programs. But that's important, and I appreciate what the city has done in terms of bringing taxing bodies together to try to lower the property tax rates, because businesses look at those. That's why we have incentives now, because we need to overcome that obstacle. So I would hope you would look at that in the future and approach the tax levy process with a careful approach and look at carefully what you need and what you can use. Thank you.
All right, with that said, we will move on to old business. Old business, item A, adoption of tax levy 2023 tax year. This is an action item. It is recommended that the Board of Education adopt the 2023 tax levy as presented on the certificate of the tax levy. Is there a motion?
Can we have some questions answered first?
Oh, of course. Do you have a question, Chris?
Yeah.
Okay,
So
go.
I just want to first start out by saying I fully support the levy that the district has brought before us this evening at this point. We have had weeks, or really pretty much just a straight month, of collaboration from multiple parties to get to this number. And something that a lot of people have mentioned is the tax abatement piece. One of the public comments tonight even spoke to how the property tax relief grants most likely will go away at some point. So that is a concern that I do share. So I guess I'm just wondering, Armir, if you could speak to what the district's exit plan is when the state stops giving us that property tax relief grant, and what is our plan to make sure we're not leaving the taxpayers holding the bag on that $12 million?
Correct. So I think that what we're doing here, what's presented, gives you the permanent, the permanent relief to taxpayers that we talked about. So the following year, we're going to start off at that 76 million. Every year, the board can make that decision. We can present many type of options and abatements that can be also part of the consideration. But right now, we want to make sure that we holding the taxpayers hold harmless, which this proposal does, and additionally, we're giving them that permanent tax relief that the board members have asked.
So then the tax, that's something that we actively approve on, or that we actively go up for vote, right? Every year?
The property tax relief grant?
Right, the pizza?
Correct.
Okay, so as long as the board continues to approve it, then this should be something that we continue to apply for and actively, hopefully, get from the state of Illinois.
Correct, correct.
I guess I'll rephrase my question in another way. Based on one, we're lowering the tax rate, and our EAV is also growing astronomically right now. So I guess my concern is we can apply for this grant every year, but the likelihood that we continue to receive this grant after this year, I think, goes down drastically. We've already changed tiers and starting to lose other education-based funding that we were receiving. So the state of Illinois, as they go back and rerun our averages, is gonna see, holy moly, these guys have like doubled their EAV, where the state, I think if I'm not mistaken, is estimating we're at like 1.2 billion as an average right now. Realistically, we can see next year they're gonna be guessing we're between 1.5 to 1.8 billion on our EAV, and they're gonna come to a point where they say we don't need to give them this property tax relief grant. They're getting it from their existing tax base. So I guess my question is, once the state of Illinois says that faucet's turned off, you can apply, but you're not getting this anymore, how are we making sure that the people sitting before us in this room right now aren't left with that new $12 million bill?
So that will be a decision at that time, but right now, by lowering the operating levy by 76, it gives that permanent reduction. We also want to make sure we take advantage of the industrial zone. So if we are having this astronomical growth, then we want to make sure that it does pay, and we do take benefit of it. And also it shifts the burden from residential taxpayers towards more of the industrial zone. So we want to take that growth, and the following year we can reassess and have abatements out of our fund balance. So that's one way to mitigate it.
Any other questions? Okay. All right, so with that said, then again, I will read the action item. It is recommended that the Board of Education adopt the 2023 tax levy as presented on the certificate of the tax levy. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Andre Powell.
Yes.
Steve Byers.
Yes.
Ariel Owens.
Yes.
Christopher Boyes.
Yes.
Daisy Ramirez.
Yes.
Vante Bynum.
Yes.
Amanda Harness.
Yes.
All right, new business. It is recommended, is an information action item. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the expulsion for student number 122123 as presented. Is there a motion?
Daisy, it's in abeyance. It's in abeyance.
Within the bands?
Sorry.
That's not in there. Okay, I apologize. So just reread it within the bands?
Correct. Yep.
Okay, all right. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the expulsion within the bands for student number 122123 as presented. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Steve Byers.
Yes.
Ariel Owens.
Yes.
Christopher Boyes.
Yes.
Daisy Ramirez.
Yes.
Vante Bynum.
Yes.
Amanda Harness.
Yes.
Andre Powell.
Right, the next item is item B, which is under new business, contracted services, speech and language, I'm assuming pathologist.
We would
So
ask
this
that
is-
everyone hold off on conversation until they exit the auditorium, please.
This is an item by Kyle Gertis, and this is an information action item as well.
He's over here.
Oh, I apologize, Kyle, I was looking for you over here.
No, that's all right.
Thank you.
Good evening. Coming before you tonight with a contract for a speech and language pathologist that is actually contracted with us during the first semester to cover a maternity leave. She was able to work about 15 hours per week to do that. As you know, and I've talked about this, we still struggle to fill the gap we have in speech and language. And so we're really lucky that it really went well first semester, and so we engaged in some conversation around her services for second semester, this time to support our high school. And with that, we have a service agreement that would have her work 15 hours a week maximum at a rate of $85 an hour, which is the same rate as fall semester, totaling $22,950. and it is info action tonight, so that way she could, technically her contract from the fall ends today. So this would allow her to start January 8th or the first day that week she can work to hit the ground running.
So is this an extension or is it a new contract?
It's a new contract, but it really is extending.
But with
what she
somebody
did.
that's already working
Yep.
in our district?
Yep.
Okay.
So the change in the contract really was the dates and hours. per week.
Location, okay. Do we have any questions?
No question.
All right. All right, with that, again, I'm going to read the recommended action. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the service agreement with Marigold Pediatric Therapy for speech and language services for the remainder of the 2023-2024 school year. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Ariel Owens?
Yes.
Christopher Boyce?
Yes.
Stacy Ramirez?
Yes.
Vante Bynum?
Yes.
Amanda Harness?
Yes.
Andre Poe?
Yes.
Steve Byers?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. And now it is 7:29, and with that, it is recommended that the Board of Education will adjourn. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for coming,
Happy holidays.
and happy holidays.